Hi guys, thanks for clicking on this video. I'm so glad you're here. I am doing my wrap up for what I read this summer. I haven't done one of these like seasonal ones, but I made a TBR at the beginning of the summer of books I wanted to read. And I think maybe I'll tally things up to see how many of those books I actually read. I have a stack of books right here of physical books I read, as well as I have like my list of audiobooks, ebooks and stuff. I did a lot of reading this summer, and so I'm super excited to share with you all the books I read. Okay, so the first book I read is called The Downline, and this was an ebook that was gifted to me by the author, and it is all about MLMs. It's a story about like a woman in an MLM and just kind of like the inner workings of some of those companies and kind of like the sinister things behind it. There's also like a missing person that we're trying to figure out where they went, whatever. So it's got a little bit of mystery in it, but if you like anti-MLM content, because I've made a few of those videos in the past, you're probably gonna like this book. I found it very entertaining. I ended up giving it a 4 stars on Goodreads. And then the next book I read was The Monogram Murders. This is by Sophie Hannah, but it is Agatha Christie-esque. Like, she uses Agatha Christie's characters and similar writing styles. So Sophie Hannah has a new Hercule Poirot series, I guess. I don't know how many books are in it, maybe like 4 or 5. And so this is the first one, and I had bought this at a bookstore thinking that it was Agatha Christie. I actually really enjoyed this book. There was a lot of twists and turns. The ending was really fun, and it made me want to continue this series by her. I thought her writing style was really easy to engage with, and yeah, I really liked it. So I ended up giving this one a 5 star. Then the next one I physically read was Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. This one was pretty good. I wouldn't say that this one blew my mind. I was expecting it to blow my mind. This is a Christian nonfiction, and it's the first John Piper book I've read, but it was also like, I believe, one of his most hyped up books. I think my biggest gripe with this is just like, it was pretty boring, and I don't know if that was the way that it was written or just that there was a lot of the same stuff kind of over and over again, although I do think that the message is great. So it's, you know, basically from the title you kind of get what it's talking about, and it probably doesn't need to be this large of a book, but just making your life count for Christ. I had high expectations and it just didn't meet them. I still think it's a good book, but I do have a lot of other like way higher ranked Christian nonfiction, and this is just not gonna make the cut for that list. This one I ended up giving a 3 star. So I thought it was just middle of the road. Then the next book I read was an ebook, and it was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. And oh my gosh, I think this was my first thriller that I've ever read, and because I've now I have an iPad, and so I like reading ebooks, I can get like more thrillers in ebook form from the library, and oh my goodness, I really enjoyed this one. This one was so intriguing. I felt like the pace was really good. I was so confused. I loved the twists, and the big twist at the end was really awesome as well. I definitely didn't see it coming. Just thoroughly enjoyed reading this one. It had a lot of just like kind of spooky, eerie vibes, which I don't normally read books like that, but I think that's what kept me so intrigued, is because it was such a new experience. But yeah, I really liked it. I blew through this one, and I gave it a 5 stars. The next one I read was physical, and that was Managing God's Money by Randy Alcorn. So I didn't read this whole book this summer, but I finished it this summer. So there was like maybe, I was probably like halfway through. But this book, you guys, is a Christian nonfiction about managing money, and I'll tell you what, I did not want to read this. I knew that I needed to, but I didn't want to. My flesh was like, no, you have finances handled, and this book is just going to tell you to give all your money away. After I read this book, my mindset towards money was so challenged when reading this, but also encouraged. It was convicting, but also inspiring at the same time. And that's why I think it made such an impact, is I wasn't reading this feeling like terrible about myself the whole time. It was like, wow, that's convicting, but that's inspiring, and that's what I want. And I knew that the Holy Spirit was just like working through me to receive this message. I could not recommend this book enough. Please do not sleep on this. Like, I think this is a book everybody needs to hear. This is the book that challenged me to do my charity of the months. I will definitely keep this around in my collection and reread it, because I think that the messages in here are just almost needed as a constant reminder to realize that life is short, money is just money, and that everything is actually God's. I really like this. Gave it a 5-star. It was amazing. Now, the next one I read on audiobook was The Night Swim by Megan Golden. I actually really liked this one. This one was kind of more detective-based thriller. It has some like heavier themes, so I would read what the book is about so that you know what it is going into it. But I found it really cool because there was like courtroom settings, there's like a podcaster involved, there's 2 different crimes, and one's a murder from like years past that is being brought up again. And so it's very interesting. Again, read like the synopsis for the trigger stuff, because there's some pretty heavy topics discussed, and the whole book kind of revolves around it. And so there can be some pretty descriptive things that maybe are too hard for people to read about, but I actually ended up really liking this one, and I gave it a 4-star. And then the next one I read physically and at the same time audibly on audiobook. And that is A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. And this is the first book in the Mark of the Lion trilogy. My friend let me borrow the physical copy, which I was trying to get into, and I wasn't grasping. Like, there was too many names I couldn't pronounce. And so it kind of stunted me wanting to read the book. And then I got it on audiobook, and I listened as well as kind of physically read along, and then just kind of stuck to listening to it. And let me tell you, it's way better on audiobook. I was not enjoying it very much at all physically reading it, but on audiobook I enjoyed it way more. There was a lot of things I didn't really like about it. There were some like theological things that I thought were kind of like a little bit off, but ultimately like the story of it was still pretty good, and I liked a lot of the content in it, but it wasn't like perfect for me. And so I ended up giving this one a 3-star. I am listening to the second book, what is it called? An Echo in the Darkness, I think. So I'm listening to the second one now. I'm almost done with that one, and I've liked that one way more. So the content in the second book I like way more, but obviously the first book is necessary to get to the second book. I think the second book actually redeemed a lot of what the first book talked about, so just throwing that out there. I think I'm actually liking the series a lot more than I thought I would, because the second book has kind of like restored my enjoyment of it and the story in general. So yeah, but anyways, I did end up giving the first one a 3-star. The next one I read was this one, and this is called Off Season by Anne Rivers Seidens. This is something I picked up just randomly at a thrift store. It's like a contemporary atmospheric grief novel. I didn't really like this one. It's out of my comfort zone. It's not really the books that I like to read. It was very atmospheric. I ended up getting the audiobook for this like little over halfway through, and kind of read along as I was listening to it so I could read it faster. I don't know, it just, like, I remember a lot of this book because of how atmospheric it was, and because you kind of get sucked into the story, you get sucked into the setting. I liked the setting. It was like a vacation house. Where's the vacation house? In Maine, off the coast of Maine, that this like rich family owns. It's kind of interesting seeing like the lifestyle of people that can have vacation homes and stuff. But you explore a lot of like tragedy and death, and you follow people throughout their lives. And I don't know if that sounds like something that you like. Here you go. Here's a great book for you. It was just too boring for me. There wasn't, because I'm so used to mystery, there wasn't like an element of mystery to this. It was just you were walking through these people's lives, or like this one lady's life, and you follow her when she's young, and then when she goes back when she's older, and you kind of just deal with the loss of a lot of people that she loved. And I don't know, I just wasn't a fan, so I ended up giving this a 2-star, even though I enjoy the setting that it took me to in my mind. I think maybe that's not, I don't know how do you describe that, but like when a book does a really good job of making you feel like you're there, I feel like this did that. So there is some redeeming factors in that book. Then the next one is Fault Lines by Vodi Bakum. I did a reading vlog of this one, and this is a great Christian and nonfiction about social justice, critical race theory, things like that. He has done extensive research on these subjects and how it's affecting the church, how it's affecting the world, how it's affecting culture, and what the Bible says. And I just think that this is a very timely book with everything that the world is pushing. There's so many things in this book that really helped me to grasp why this is so important to the world. It's dividing the church in so many different little fractions, and man, its end is going to be catastrophic if we don't do something about it. And that's kind of like what he's talking about, the social justice movement and evangelicalism's looming catastrophe. And that's really what it is. So I think that, man, please read this. It's a great Christian nonfiction. He's super, super smart. Highly respect Vodi. So really liked this book. I gave it a 5-star. Now, the next one is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. Guys, this was not a good book, okay? I had high hopes because I'd heard so many things about this book, and that it's a mystery thriller. I was like, cool, love those, totally gonna be about this. It has a movie like adaptation. I had never seen it, and now after reading the book, I do not ever want to see it. This book aggravated me to no end. I have never read a book with such horrible characters. Every single one of them. All of the characters in this book are so frustrating and so annoying and so dumb, especially because the main girl is like an alcoholic, and man, she just makes stupid choices, really stupid choices. I'm like, but she'll do it again. Like, she doesn't learn. They're all just horrible characters. I gave this a 2-star. I might have given it a 1-star, but I did like the twist, I guess, because I didn't see it coming. Maybe because I was so annoyed that I wasn't actually like in this book as much as I probably should have been for a thriller. I just wanted it to end, and I was struggling getting through it. So I really, really did not like this book. I don't recommend it. Not worth your time. Okay. And then the next book I read was Uninvited by Lisa TerKeurst. This was also given to me to borrow from my friend, and so this is her physical copy. This is the first Lisa TerKeurst book I've read. I went into this being a little wary. I think the circles that she runs in aren't necessarily like circles that I do. I actually like this book a lot more than I thought. I guess I went in with kind of low expectations, not gonna lie, but there were a lot of things in here that I actually really enjoyed, and so I was pleasantly surprised. Yet, having said that, there was a lot of stuff in this book that I could not relate to in any way, shape, or form. Here's the thing. She talks to you in the way of like sitting down at a coffee shop with a friend, talking about things that are super relatable. But when she's talking and she's writing in that style, she's writing as if she's talking to you and having a conversation of like, oh yeah, you've experienced this and you've done this. And I'm like, I haven't. And so there was like chapters and stuff where she's like sympathizing with the reader on things that they've felt, which I have never felt. So I felt really disconnected on a lot of chapters because of her writing style, because I'm like, I've never felt this way, yet you're talking to me as if I've felt this so many times. I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. There's some chapters obviously that I really liked and other chapters that I'm like, nah, it was better than I thought. So I ended up giving this a 3.5 star. Then the next one is an Agatha Christie, and this is The Body in the Library. This was a really short little Agatha Christie book, part of her Miss Marple series, and I enjoyed this one a lot. This one was really fun. It's been a while since I've read like a physical Agatha Christie. I used to get them from the library all the time, but this one I've actually bought. This was part of like my birthday book haul, but this is a really intriguing kind of like quick little mystery of a body that was found in a library. And the people who own the house that this body was found in don't know who this is. They have never seen them before. So a mystery ensues. Miss Marple's brought in. I love Miss Marple. She's one of my favorite characters. I liked it. It was an enjoyable read. I read it pretty quickly. It was nice to read another Agatha Christie. So I ended up giving this one a 4 star. Then the next one I read was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. And wow, this book I read in less than 24 hours. I still can't believe I did that. I was like turning the pages. I think because I had heard so much about the twist in this book that I was like, I have to know what happens. I have to know what happens. This book blew my mind. It is really, really good. I really want Nick to read it. He's not a reader, but I want him to read this because I want to talk about it. If you've read this book, please like send me an email or a comment or something. No, not a comment, because we don't want to spoil it for anyone. If you want, send me an email. Help me to discuss this. Help me to break this down. I feel like I need to tell somebody, but I can't tell Nick because I don't want to give anything away. This book was awesome. It's like a psychological thriller. My brain was like, maybe this happened, maybe this happened, maybe this happened, like 50 miles an hour reading this book. I was kind of exhausted, to be honest, but basically the premise, I'm sure you've heard of it if you like are on BookTube, or if you like mystery thrillers, you've probably heard of this one. But basically the whole idea is that a woman shot her husband and now is in a psychiatric ward. And is that what they call them? Psychiatric unit, yeah. She ends up in the psychiatric ward because she doesn't speak. So she killed her husband and then hasn't spoken a word since. And so it's been years. This therapist comes in to try and get her to talk, to try and find out what happened, why'd she shoot her husband, things like that. Yes, this book is amazing. So I don't want to talk about it too much longer. I gave it a 5 stars. So good. And then the next one I read was Coupon Crazy: The Science, the Savings, and the Stories Behind America's Extreme Obsession. This is by Mary Potter Kenyon, and she actually reached out to me, asked if I would be open to receiving some of her books. And so she sent me a couple of her books, and this was the first one I've read from her. This one was super, oh my gosh, like I grew up couponing and I like want to get back into it, especially after reading this book. It's just like a blast from the past. I feel like there's a lot of nostalgic things in this one. If your parents or your mom or something couponed, you would probably be like me, being like, oh my gosh, yes. There is a lot of information in this. So it's kind of like a nonfiction where you're learning a lot of information behind marketing and different companies and things like that. At times I felt like it was a little bit too information crazy like info dump on me, like the personal stories of people and what they do to save some money, I liked those a little bit better personally. So I did end up giving this a 3-star, or did I give it a 3.5? 3.5. Yeah. So I gave this a 3.5 because I did enjoy it. I think the only thing that kind of wasn't as fun was how much information it was. I kind of like more story-based stuff, but still, I thought it was really good. I liked this first book from her. She sent me a few others, so I'm excited to read the other ones. And then the last one I read was an ebook, and it was the second Sophie Hannah Hercule Poirot, new Hercule Poirot mysteries, and it's called Closed Casket. This one was also super fun. I read it on ebook. Did I say that? Yeah, this one, you're in a mansion. They're talking about a will and who's gonna get their inheritance, and then there's a murder and everybody's like kept in the house basically. It was just really fun. Honestly, there wasn't like a big twist at the end like The Silent Patient or something like that, or like Lock and Read or a thriller like that. It was more of like that classic charm mystery where there's little twists and turns throughout the whole time you're reading it. Like you start to learn these like twists while you're pretty early on in the book and you're like, wait, what? That happened? Or wait, what? They did this? You know, and it's like, it's a classic like winding mystery with a really fun setting and like an older house and talking about the will and the inheritance, you know, when money's involved, who done it, you know? I really actually liked it. So I ended up giving it a 4-star. I don't think I liked it as much as the first one, but I still really liked it. It was really fun and I do recommend it. That actually wraps it up. How many books is that? That was 15 books for the summer, and my goal at the beginning of the summer was 8 books. So I think I did pretty darn good. Although I didn't read all the ones on my TBR. Oops. That was all the books I read this summer. I would love to know any of the books that you read this summer, maybe some of your standout ones. If you like book content, I'll leave more links and playlists and stuff to book related videos because I love book related content and I make a lot of it on my channel. So give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching, and I will see you in my next video.